The handball that created the penalty kick. Most fans know what a penalty kick is, but almost nobody knows how it came to exist. Before 1891, there was no such thing. If a defender hacked down an attacker on the goal line, the attacking team received a free kick, taken from the spot of the foul, with every single defender legally allowed to stand between the ball and the goal. It made it almost impossible to score. Defenders knew it, and they abused it constantly. Then came February the 14th, 1891, FA Cup quarter-final between Stoke City and Notts County. Stoke were awarded what should have been a certain goal, but a Notts County defender handled the ball on the goal line. Deliberately, the free kick that followed was blocked. Stoke scored nothing. The crowd was furious, the press was furious, and the footballing establishment was finally embarrassed enough to act. A rule had already been proposed the previous year by an Irish goalkeeper named William McCrum. He called for one kick, one man, 12 yards from goal. The English press had called it the death penalty for football. They said it was an insult to assume that gentlemen might cheat, but after what happened at Stoke, nobody was laughing anymore. On the 2nd of June 1891, the penalty kick was officially introduced into the laws of the game. William McCrum never received proper credit in his lifetime. He died poor and alone after the stock market crash of 1929 wiped out everything he had. But every penalty kick ever taken, every shootout that has decided a World Cup, carries his name on it. The offside trap that broke the game in the early 1920s, a Newcastle United defender named Bill McCracken discovered something dangerous, a loophole in the offside rule. At the time, an attacker needed 3 opponents between himself and the goal to stay onside. McCracken didn't just use that rule, he weaponized it. He trained his defensive line to step forward together in perfect unison, catching attackers offside before they could even receive the ball. Referees were blowing for offside 40 times per game. 40 times. Newspapers called it the eternal whistle. Goals dried up across the entire football league. Crowds fell. The game was becoming unwatchable. By the 1924 to 1925 season, the average goals per game in England had dropped to just 2.58. The Football Association changed the rule. From 3 defenders needed to keep an attacker onside to 2. One small number, enormous consequences. On the very first day under the new rule, Aston Villa beat Burnley 10-0. Total goals in the first division jumped by 43% in a single season. Defenses had no answer. Except one man did. Herbert Chapman, newly arrived as Arsenal manager, redesigned how his team stood on the pitch. He withdrew a midfielder into a deeper defensive role and created what became known as the WM formation. Historians regard it as one of the founding tactical systems of modern football. One loophole, one rule change, and every formation you have ever seen was born from that crisis. The dirty look that gave US the red card, it was a World Cup quarter-final at Wembley in 1966. England versus Argentina. German referee Rudolf Kreitlin was struggling to control a match that was spiraling out of his hands. Then he sent off Argentine captain Antonio Ratten. Not for a tackle, not for a foul, not even for a clear act of aggression. The official post-match report stated that Ratten had been dismissed for violence of the tongue, but Kreitlin spoke no Spanish, and Ratten spoke no German. A dirty look had got him expelled from a World Cup quarter-final. Ratten refused to leave the pitch. Police were called on. As a final act of defiance, he sat down on the red carpet reserved exclusively for the Queen of England. The man brought in to calm the situation was Ken Aston, head of the tournament's referees. After the chaos finally ended, Aston was left with a problem he couldn't shake. England's Jack Charlton had read in the newspaper the following morning that he had been booked during the match. He hadn't even known it had happened. That evening, driving from Wembley back to Lancaster Gate, Aston stopped at traffic lights on Kensington High Street. He watched the lights change. Yellow, then red. Yellow, take it easy, he thought. Red, stop. You're off. He arrived home and told his wife the idea. She went into the other room and came back with 2 cards cut from construction paper, sized to fit a shirt pocket. Yellow and red cards were introduced at the 1970 World Cup in Mexico. A language barrier, a furious Argentine captain, a red carpet for the Queen, and a traffic light on a London street. That is the origin of every yellow card, every red card, every sending off you have ever witnessed. The World Cup so boring it changed the law. Italia 90. 32 years after the red and yellow card was introduced in Mexico, a different World Cup in Italy created a different kind of crisis. The 1990 FIFA World Cup recorded the lowest goals per game average in the history of the tournament, 2.21 goals per match. And the reason was painfully simple. When a team took the lead, they passed the ball back to their goalkeeper. He picked it up, walked with it, held it, did it again. In a group stage match between Ireland and Egypt, Irish goalkeeper Paddy Bonner held the ball for nearly 6 minutes without releasing it. 6 minutes, all completely legal. The crowd booed. The press destroyed the tournament. FIFA's technical director wrote a formal letter to FIFA's president arguing for urgent change. The new rule was trialed at the 1991 Under-17 World Championship in Italy, and in 1992, it became law. Goalkeepers could no longer pick up the ball with their hands from a deliberate kick by a teammate. The back pass rule. The effect was immediate. Goalkeepers could no longer be safe houses for nervous teams. They had to learn how to play with their feet. The sweeper keeper was born from that panic. Manuel Neuer perfected it into an art form decades later. But the origin of that position traces directly back to Paddy Bonner, cradling a ball in Palermo for 6 minutes while Egypt waited. The ghost goal that forced football into the future. England versus Germany, round of 16. South Africa, 2010, Germany led 2-1. Frank Lampard struck a shot from outside the box. It hammered off the underside of the crossbar, bounced clearly over the goal line by 2 or 3 feet, and then spun back out onto the pitch. The referee saw nothing. His assistant saw nothing. Germany won 4-1. It was England's biggest World Cup defeat in history. Millions of television viewers had watched the ball cross the line in real time. Everyone could see it. Everyone except the officials on the pitch. FIFA President Sepp Blatter, who had spent years opposing technological assistance in football, publicly apologized to England. He cited that moment as the reason he changed his position. Goal line technology was approved in 2012. It was used at the 2014 World Cup in Brazil, and within 2 years, the same demand for accuracy gave birth to the video assistant referee, VAR, introduced at the 2018 World Cup in Russia. One disallowed goal in Bloemfontein started a technological revolution that is still reshaping the sport today. Frank Lampard later said about the incident, "It changed the game for the better," and he was right. Even if it hurt him personally more than anyone. The point that changed everything for most of football's history. Winning a match earned a team 2 points. Drawing earned 1. The mathematics created a problem. A draw was worth exactly half of a victory. So when a team went 1 goal ahead, the rational decision was to stop attacking and protect what they had. Draw 1-0, take the point, come back next week. Football became cautious. Predictable, defensive. The Football League in England changed the system first in 1981. 3 points for a win, 1 for a draw, 0 for a loss. The calculation flipped overnight. A draw was suddenly worth 33% less than it had been the day before. Protecting a lead was no longer the safe option. Teams started chasing games. Managers started making attacking substitutions. Trailing sides started believing they could still win. FIFA adopted the 3-point system for the 1994 World Cup in the United States, and it became universal across world football from that point forward. Every time you see a manager throw on a striker in the 80th minute while his team is losing, that substitution exists because of this rule change.